Hi, I'm Dizzy Ine and welcome to my channel. This week I read the first chapter of The Power of Habit, a book by Charles Duhigg or Duhigg, I don't know how you pronounce it. And I really liked the book. I think just from reading the first chapter there's a lot to learn. There's a lot that's intriguing that keeps you hooked to the book. I think he did a very good job of mixing a good story with some good content about how habits work, and I learned quite a few things actually from the first chapter, and I think it's worth reading the rest of the book if you haven't read it before. Some people push books so hard, like this is one of those books that everyone's like, oh, you have to read it, The Power of Habit, and I was like, maybe they just had very good marketing, but it turns out book actually is good. I read it and I learned quite a few things. One of them was that habits actually are as important as memory and reason, because they're also at the root of how we behave. So thinking about memory and thinking about reason as components of how we behave is not something I've ever thought about before. So now I just have to sit here and think, okay, habits as much as memory and reason are at the root of how we behave. And another thing that the book said is that habits emerge without our permission. You don't realize that you're forming a habit and you don't have a say in it, because that's just how your brain works. The habits are encoded into our brains, and so they never really disappear. When they emerge, the book says, your brain stops fully participating in decision making. So you do some things every day, like I study myself now every morning. I'm like, oh, this is how I jump out of bed, or this is how I brush my teeth, this is how I eat, this is how I drink, and this is stuff that I never actually ever thought about, but I now look at and think, this is how I do this. Why do I do this? Why do I eat the way I eat? You know, when I jump out of bed, why do I stand up and do the things the way I do them every single day? It's actually very hard to ignore right now, ever since I read this book. Every small thing I do is brushing my teeth, backing up the driveway. I'm like, I do this the same way every day. And it's hard to imagine that you don't really have a choice in doing this, because your brain has encoded it very, very strongly. And you know, you're just going with the flow according to your brain's functioning. How your brain decides that you should do things is how you're doing them, but you have nothing to do about it, nothing to say about it. You're stuck with that. So there was really a lot to learn with this book. Just the fact that your brain stops fully participating in decision making. Like every single day we do small things and we think we've made a choice, like actively, but your brain isn't fully participating. You're doing things very subconsciously. Yeah, it's very interesting. The book has a story about a certain guy called Eugene, and the story is really good. I think if you didn't enjoy anything else, I would recommend you read the story of Eugene, because it gives so much light into the study of habits and their formation and how complex the brain is. One of the things that came up was that it's possible to learn and make unconscious decisions without remembering anything about what you learned and how you made a decision. So you can learn how to do something without remembering anything about the lesson learned, and you can choose to do something every single day without remembering how you began choosing this. And I don't know about you, but I feel like this is a bit of, I want to feel as if I have some control over the minute details of my day-to-day life, but apparently not. I don't have any control over it. I'm just going with the flow for most of my day. And you know, it's good, it's for my own good, you know, because the book says without this, like the formation of habits, the way our brains function, our brains would shut down if we were, you know, if we didn't have this subconscious habit loop going forward in our minds every day, just doing things on some automated scale. our brains would shut down because we would be too overwhelmed by the small details of every single thing. And it makes sense, but I like to think that I have some, conscious effort going on throughout my day. But sadly, as according to this book, not really. I do a lot of things on automatic mode. I'm just going with the flow, every single day. Yeah, this book, like, everybody reads it and it tells you about the habit loop. Chapter 1, you read the book and they're like, yes, there's a habit loop. It's a 3-step process that your brain goes through when it's creating a habit. The first step is you have a cue, which is like some trigger that tells your brain to go into an automatic mode in which habit to use. So for instance, if you're deciding upon what to eat every day, there might be a road you take, a path, a route on your way home that triggers your brain into thinking about a specific type of food you want to eat. It could be a smell that triggers you into choosing, you're trying to avoid chicken, but you smell some fried chicken and your brain is triggered into thinking, I need to eat fried chicken now, and then you make a choice to go that way. The second step about within the habit loop is the routine. So your routine could be a physical routine, it could be a mental routine, or an emotional routine. So if it was a mental routine, it's maybe you pass by the mirror every day and you have a habit, you must check your appearance before you leave, and doing this maybe triggers you into feeling like you don't look good enough today, or something as dark. Why did I go the dark route, man? Anyway, you have a routine, and then at the end of the day you have a reward. That's the third bit of the habit loop that helps your brain figure out if this loop is worth remembering in the future. So let's go back to the happy things. We talked about the chicken. Yeah, you smell chicken, your brain is triggered into thinking, oh, I need chicken. You go buy the chicken because it's on the way home from work. It's very convenient, the store. So you go buy the chicken and then you eat it, and your brain feels rewarded by the sensations, the happiness and the joy you receive from eating the chicken you really love. And your brain records that reward as something that should be remembered for the future, that a happiness you feel when you eat something you like. It records that to be something like, you should do again in the future. It's worth remembering. So your brain forms that loop. So the next time you smell that chicken, you go through the same 3-step process, and then you form a habit, and it becomes something that is very hard to let go of because it's stuck with you. This book, chapter 1, has been really, really, really fun to read. I highly recommend it if you're out there and you're trying to decide whether or not you should read chapter 1 of The Power of Habit. I, once again, highly recommend it. Thank you for listening. Have a wonderful day.